everybody, it's Rebecca from Supergirl Radio. We're going to get started here officially in a little bit. I have all of the podcasters for the Podcasters Roundtable here except for Morgan. So we are going to make sure that she can get on because I think we're having some technical issues. So we will get started here in a little bit. But if you have any questions for any of the podcasters that we are bringing on, please feel free to drop that in the live chat. And boy, my copy and paste is not working. Okay. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the live chat and we will get those to the podcasters. We've got podcasters from Supergirl's Attic Pod, of course, and we also have the Maid of Steel podcast with us. So feel free to share any thoughts that you have about podcasting or the final season of Supergirl or any of your favorite podcasters that we have with us. And we'll get started here as soon as Morgan arrives. So if anybody has any questions or comments from me, I guess I could say that we are still planning what we're going to be doing next week. We've got most of our schedule for the next month-ish already scheduled, but we've got some things still in the works. So feel free to hit us up with any ideas that you might have. But I think we're going to try to catch up on some comics and maybe some Supergirl stuff. So it looks like Morgan, are you there? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, I'll bring you in.
Ooh.
I had a whole bunch of podcasters ready to go, except for one. Oops. So I'm glad that you made space in your schedule.
Listen, I'm very busy. But no, I couldn't I was like, where did I put my headphones? I'm like running all around and then I found them like in my bedroom and I was like, what are you doing here?
All right. Well, I don't have to vamp anymore. Morgan is here with us. We've got a whole bunch of podcasters ready to go. So I guess we should just go ahead and get started. So Morgan, if that's okay with you.
I'll allow it.
Okay. All right. We'll get started and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Noyce, and you're listening to Supergirl Radio.
McGurk! I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom, because
she looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. So fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Welcome to Supergirl Radio, your source for all things related to the CW Supergirl TV series and the character of Kara Zor-El. My name is Rebecca Johnson.
I'm Morgan Glennon.
And for this episode of the podcast, we are live and wired, and we are going to have another Supergirl Podcasters Roundtable. And I guess I should go ahead and bring them all in.
Whoa.
We've got a big crowd with us tonight to talk about all things Supergirl, especially the ending of Supergirl. So we are joined by Cycles and Vivi from Supergirl's Attic, Shelley from Pod, of course, a Supergirl podcast, and Justina and John, aka the Green Butterfly and the Silver Box of Maid of Steel, a Supergirl podcast. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this big roundtable, but more like what kind of geometric shape is this? I don't know. On
a Supergirl emblem.
Okay, yes,
exactly.
It sort of looks like an S shield. I guess that's the geometric shape we're going with. But yeah, so we are going to be talking about the final season of Supergirl and your experiences watching the final season. We know what our experience was on Supergirl Radio, but we are very curious to see if you all had similar or different experiences with the ending of this show. Now, previously we held a Supergirl Roundtable in June of 2020, which seems like 10 years ago now. But now that
we were all so much younger then.
We were so much younger then. But now that the show has actually wrapped up, we thought it might be nice to catch up with our fellow podcasters and see what y'all had to say about the final season. And we'll take some questions from the chat. If you're in the live chat and you have questions for the folks on our panel, our round table, our geometric shape here, feel free to drop any questions or comments that you have for them. And I guess the first thing that we could start talking about, so if you can go back, it's been a long time now since before season 6 began. It's been such a long time. But I'm curious, what were your hopes going into the final season of Supergirl? Did you have expectations? Did you have things that you wanted to see? So that's the first thing that we're going to talk about. So Justina, you're the first on my row here. I don't know if that's the same with everybody, but I guess we'll start with you and kind of go down our shape here. So Justina, what were your hopes going into the final season of Supergirl?
I wanted something very simple. I wanted a happy ending, and I wanted Alex to get a family.
Those are all great things, and your expectations paid off. you got your hopes and dreams for the show, so that's awesome. So Cycles from Supergirl's Attic, what were the things that you were maybe, or did you? I guess I'm just assuming everybody had hopes and expectations going into the final season. Maybe I shouldn't assume that, but did you have any things that you wanted to see in the final season?
Well, we had our very niche once of musical references. Vivi
Yes.
And I. And then mostly just like, big feelings that, Supergirl can often reach, like the sad crying, the happy crying, the many hugs, etc.
Well, that I think there were some of that. Did you feel like some of those expectations were fulfilled?
Definitely toward the beginning. And
Okay.
then we'll get to the rest of it.
That was the most loaded I've ever heard.
All right. So I guess we'll go to your co-host on Supergirl's Attic. Vivi, did you have any different expectations, or were we all kind of feeling the same thing going in?
So yeah, we're only allowed to have the same thoughts. I had like certain things that I assumed they would do just because it was a final season and they needed closure on certain storylines. But I think my biggest things were, in terms of things I hoped to see, were reappearances by the original cast as much as they could because of COVID, and then just for there to be an emotionally satisfying conclusion.
Yeah, and I think depending on your expectations, I think you got those in the
Some
end.
of it to varying levels of satisfying. Yes.
Yeah. We had some really good guest stars or former full-time regulars come back in the end, so that was a good payoff for the final season. All right, so John, did you have hopes, dreams, expectations for the final season, and did you get to see them realized?
Absolutely. I had good expectations in that I wanted them to go back to the formula where we saw Kara walking through something that also had reflections on Supergirl walking kind of in the same thing. And so we would see how they reflected off of each other and how they grew each other a lot how season 1 was constructed. What we got out of season 6, I didn't really see that until possibly the very end, and it seemed like it was just compressed, packed in for time. And I wish that we had gotten some of those beats stretched out a lot further so that we could get a lot further with both sides of Kara and Supergirl.
Yeah, I think it did sort of circle back to the beginning a little bit there towards the end. So if you wanted some of that season 1 feel, I think perhaps you got it a little bit there at the end. Shelley, did you have any hopes and dreams for the final season of Supergirl? And did you think that they came true? And make sure you unmute yourself. Yeah.
I did have some hopes for Supergirl season 6, and some of them did come true. I wanted Kara to like kind of close up her series long laments of her kind of just, I wanted her to be comfortable being Kara and be content with that. I also wanted her to find someone, and so she wouldn't have to be alone, which seemed to be like a recurring thing for her. And I also wanted to see Cat Grant again, so that happened, and I was glad for that.
You got Cat.
Yeah. I was super pumped about that, so I'll take that. That's a huge win.
Yeah, I don't know about y'all, but did you? I guess this is kind of a question for everybody, so jump in if you feel like you want to answer. But were you surprised by Callista Flockhart coming back at the end? Because it was kind of it was not really announced. She just kind of showed up. Were y'all surprised by that?
I was surprised they kept it a secret.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, usually they tell you when exciting things are happening guests wise, or you find out somehow.
Or it gets spoiled. Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that people have been asking for. Like, you think they would have maybe at least hinted at it.
Yeah.
I think they forgot the show was still on by that point in season. Oh my God, Callista Flockhart is on this show?
It really shined big her absence in like just the few minutes that she was on there. It was like, wow, we have truly missed this presence. And so
Well,
so
you even get like the
blown
music
away.
coming in.
Yeah.
Like, and you're like, oh, this is a season 1 score.
Yeah.
And it feels very like that energy.
Yep.
Yeah, she came back on and seemed to pick up right where they left off, and she definitely brings a different energy to the show and a different something different for Kara too. I think when Kat is opposed in a scene, or I guess in a like when Callista is a scene partner for Melissa, it makes things a little more. I don't know what it is that I'm trying to describe, but there's something that elevates, I think, Kara in a way when Callista and Kat are on the screen with her, because it feels like she has a mentor. She has someone to look up to, someone who is invested in Kara's growth. And I think that was kind of nice for me personally.
I always felt like Callista like pushed the scenes in a way that like the pacing, like her pacing really just like made even like doll scenes in the office where they were just like chit-chatting. It made it exciting.
Yeah, she has a real screen presence that you can't just duplicate it anywhere else.
Right.
She is very, very good. Morgan, so I'm just curious for us here at Supergirl Radio, when we went around the roundtable, I guess, do any of these answers surprise you? Or I guess any of these expectations and hopes that everybody talked about?
No, I think we had very similar hopes going into season 6. We hoped it would be about Kara. We hoped that there would be some throwbacks to season 1 to take it full circle. We hope to see Cat Grant. We hope that people were going to end up in a nice place at the end, but with some focus on them. So I think that's I feel like as a panel, as a Brady Bunch situation here. we all hoped for the same things going into the final season. I feel like you can hear everybody kind of echoing the same things. We wanted those things for the characters and for Supergirl.
Yeah, it's neat to hear that we probably talk about things in different ways, but it seems like we all kind of sort of got to the same place no matter what. So I guess the next question we could go into is, were there things that surprised you about season 6 that weren't part of your expectations, but something that surprised you about the story or the characters or their direction that they were taking it? Justina, what did you have anything that kind of surprised or shocked you in the final season?
How compelled I was by Nixley. I was not expecting that going in. I didn't have any background on the character, so I didn't have any real excitement. But Peter Sargent just was so compelling that I was sold right away and just really attached me to the story in a way that I didn't think was going to happen because it wasn't anything that I was familiar with going in.
Yeah, Nixley, as far as I'm aware, is only in a Superman comic. Like, she doesn't have a lot of comic book mythology behind her, and so the show could pretty much do, I guess, whatever they wanted to with her. And so I agree, she was definitely a pleasant surprise for season 6. So that's a great answer. Cycles, was there anything that surprised you about season 6?
When Vivi and I were looking over this question, we had the same first instinct reaction, which was the lizard faces.
Oh yeah.
What was that?
I don't know.
Truly an oh my god moment. Genuinely unexpected thing to happen. Yeah.
And then also just the device with the gauntlet, the very first one, which was the courage one, and the pilot scene that they used on the plane. They turned it around in a way I didn't expect, and at first in a great way that I enjoyed a lot, which was oh, what does it all mean? And then we sort of realized how they were going to end the series based on that, and then slightly less positively surprised at the end when the sort of creation of Supergirl was associated with cowardice, but
yeah, that's a really good point.
Some turns.
Well, Nicole in the chat says we will never know what the lizard face transition meant. So I am actually curious if anybody on the roundtable has a theory about the lizard faces.
I would love to hear it, because I like to think of it as something that all of us who talk and think about the show a lot will just years down the line go, but the lizard faces. kind of like who was the head of Leviathan? It's just
things that will haunt us.
It was Celine Dion. We revealed that on our podcast.
That was our insight. Our inside information. Celine Dion was the head of Leviathan.
No.
I love it. It makes as much sense as anything that season.
Yeah, so. At least we have an answer.
Purely Canadian, just like Lena's heritage, which was another surprise.
Vivi's getting to her answers now.
Oh, okay, all right. So Vivi, was that what was so surprising to you, Lena, going home back east to Canada?
It was Ireland, Canada.
They did all of it on a soundstage, so it was just such a choice, I guess. I was like, is it like New York City where they have rules that they have to include Canada somehow? It was a random thing. My genuine actual pleasant surprise was them adding Kenny Lee back in after the crisis reset. I loved that. It was a nice change for Kara to have a relationship that didn't end in something terrible.
still ended though, and that's what counts.
Yeah. Oh, bringing it back to set. Thank you.
Yeah, Kenny Lee was actually a pretty welcome surprise for us on Supergirl Radio. It was strange that he didn't show back up in the present timeline, but who knows where Kenny Lee or what he's doing, where he is or what he's doing now. But it was good to see that call back. So, John, what surprised you about season 6?
So I was not a good surprise in that Zor-El was actually there. They actually brought him back, and then he actually left. And and we didn't.
They had
and I get it.
Stay together though.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. He had to go back to Argo City and be with Allura, and I'm all for that. But that was really poor execution in the family dynamic, and I really love that our listeners picked up on it. Kind of makes the whole sacrifice that she made. It just makes it mean something different, and I just echoed that, and I didn't really understand why they chose to go in that direction with him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I suppose they gave Kara a bit of a happy ending with both of her parents, but it was also a very strange choice not to have her reunite with both of her parents on screen. That seemed like a missed opportunity for us. But yeah, so that's a great point. Morgan loved seeing Zor-El in season 6.
Listen, Jason Barrett looking great, looking much like he looked on Roswell. Oh my God, does he
more alien representation?
Exactly. He felt right at home there because he was like, yes, exactly, aliens, my people.
So yeah, Zor-El was an interesting surprise.
But that all could have worked.
Yeah,
it all could have worked if he was just a part of her vision quest or whatever in the Phantom Zone. And like
he was there quite randomly.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, Dad.
Yeah, right. But yet they chose to bring him back, which I thought, okay, we're going to go there, and then they didn't go there. So anyway,
Zor-El and Allura, two controversial returns back to life.
Yeah, they could have done so much more with them. I think they had too many totems to track down to do anything sadly with them. Shelley, were there any things, or was there anything, I guess I could say, that surprised you about the final season?
I guess Lex being in it wasn't actually like a surprise. But the fact that he was pining after someone, like that he was like this lovesick thing, that
Those
was
sociopaths.
It was kind of horrifying. I didn't know, like, I felt like through the season, like Nixley was trying to figure it out, and I was just like kind of with her, like, is he serious? Is this real? But it was.
Yeah,
sure was.
It shouldn't be surprising that Lex Luthor showed up at the end of the season to be like, surprise, I'm the big bad. I've been orchestrating things all along.
You might be surprised to learn I've been behind the scenes all along. It's like, haven't you been, though, for like the last 3 seasons?
At least.
Surprised now?
Exactly.
But that's a good point, Shelley, about Lex and Nixley. It was kind of a turn that they took with him to have him writing love poetry in his journals. So that was a different twist on Lex Luthor.
If only he and Brainy could have bonded over writing the love poetry.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That could have been an interesting turn for his character.
Yeah.
Brainy's like, I'm back on Team Lex.
Brainy's reading it going like, this isn't bad.
It didn't feel right. Like when they released it in the news and they were like reading what he wrote, I was just like, this just feels wrong. Like I felt like I was like a witness to something that maybe isn't an 8 o'clock slot kind of thing. I don't know. Like it made me feel dirty.
Well, I guess we could kind of maybe go in a different direction for the next question. Donna in the chat asks, for the panelists, what do you think was the biggest disappointment of season 6? So I guess we'll talk about that. So Justina, do you have a big disappointment? Was there anything that kind of let you down on the final season?
Really, I didn't have anything that I was super upset about. except for the amount of screen time for Kara and Alex.
Yeah, that's a pretty big one. I think so. I think a lot of us would probably agree about that. They could have used a little more screen time. Let's see. Cycles. Was there anything that was a disappointment for you in the final season?
As I like to call it, characterization.
Oh, unleash the essay that lives in your heart. Go.
Okay, so
Preach.
they basically took like hope, help, and compassion, and most of Kara's like positive qualities, and made the argument for why she frequently does not have them. I think they sort of subverted like her core as a hero in a way that I was not expecting, and was very much not in line with the rest of the series, especially with the compassion part of it. And she sort of lost her moral backbone at the end with Alex, when she was like, oh, I just can't fight her on this. I don't know why. When we've seen her season after season be like, no, like have a very strong moral stance about like, we have to choose the greater good over our like personal family stuff. And that's been a big piece of like contention between the sisters, going back to that sister content thing, which would have been interesting to explore, but I think because the whole thing was rushed at the very end, did not really get the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I think there was more they could have done with Kara and Alex, and for me personally, the characterization that I didn't much care for was her throwing the hope totem into the sun. That seemed like a strange choice for Supergirl, a character who is all about hope, very specifically. So I agree that was some of that maybe could have been better.
Yeah, it was a quarantine, writers in quarantine, disillusioned with a world choice.
It did have that vibe. It really did.
Yeah.
So Phoebe, did you have anything that just kind of let you down in the final season?
I will complement that with my biggest item, which was Alex related. As someone who has been a parent to a non-biological child, I was really disappointed with the way they wrapped up her storyline. As far as becoming a parent, there was not enough of her voice in it, which Kyler even kind of said in a live after the show ended. And she never had her own scenes with Esme to like sell the emotional connection. There was not a lot of reflection on her role within the Danvers family, being Kara's sister, her connection with her own mom, except kind of a contrived thing at the end in the wedding. And for a show that historically portrayed transracial and just, multicultural adoption very well, I feel like the final season really just dropped the ball entirely, especially in the conflict at the end where she just refuses to acknowledge that Kara's experiences as an alien in an adopted family had any value or maybe had to point. And they kind of just erased over that in a way that contradicted Alex's realization that she was missing things in her relationship with Kelly, and it felt very off in a way that was just disappointing.
Yeah, the way that they sort of dismissed some of Kara's own experiences was a little bit of a disappointment for me. And I think you made a good point about Alex and her voice in terms of the adoption, that she could have. It sounded like you wanted more of Alex to have more of a perspective and have her voice in terms of the story come through. I think that could have been the case for sure. So John, was there anything in the final season that disappointed you?
Absolutely. Blind spots. I will never ever get on board with what was done there. I found it to be offensive. I found it to be absolute character assassination, and I just will never be able to get over what they allowed that story to be. So,
are you saying? I'm just curious. Are you talking about the character assassination of a specific character? Are you talking about Supergirl? What? I'm just curious.
No, just saying that what they decided to let Ozzy write and present was that the white superheroes did not care about the problems that were going on with other races, and it was horrible. And I will never get over, why they chose to do that and why they allowed that to be presented that way.
Yeah, especially since Supergirl had been protecting National City for 5 seasons prior.
Right.
That I understand that point of view.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Shelley, was there anything that disappointed you in season 6?
At the end of the season, the portrayal of the Danvers sisters and specifically the conversation between Alex and Kara regarding Esme and her powers, I just find it more than hard to believe that Alex would talk to Kara that way and dismiss her point of view that easily and that brutally. It just didn't sit well with me at all. It kind of, I didn't understand why they needed that conflict so close to the end of the show. I don't know. That was very disappointing for me.
Yeah, towards the end of the season, I was like, ugh, I don't like Alex. What is she doing?
What's making her do? Yeah.
It was very, very strange.
They kind of used it as this impetus for Kara being like, oh, I guess it's okay to be a alien publicly now, when Alex was the driving force behind her not. And so that it didn't make sense.
So much of it didn't make sense. Like, they had whole episodes dedicated to reasons like why Kara kept her identity a secret and how hard she worked to like get her powers under control when she first arrived. And I feel like Alex was like a huge driving force in all of that. And her about face was not necessarily wrong, but just like out of character.
Yeah, it did seem like a lot of that was out of character at the end.
Well, I felt like we would have just needed like a bridge to show how she got there, and we got no such thing. She just showed up. She started at one place, she ended at another place, and I don't know how she got there. She teleported.
Well, it's funny because Vivi and I have talked about this. It's not necessarily outside of Alex's character to feel those things or to react in the way that she did. The show just usually sort of steers her back to an understanding with her sister in a way where it just kind of landed in that separated place.
Yeah. Well, those are all some good answers in terms of disappointment, I guess. So let's talk about maybe the flip side of it. Maybe things we enjoyed about the season, because we're all fans of Supergirl in the show. So I'm sure there are things about the final season that we enjoyed. So Justina, what's one thing in the final season of Supergirl that you just really liked?
Esme.
Ah, yes. You're stealing all of our answer. What did you like about Esme?
She is just she really just brought this brightness to the season that wasn't there before, and she has such a fun personality, and I just loved her from the first moment.
Yeah, she came in sassy in her first appearance, talking about justice. So yeah, Esme was a very welcome addition to the final season. Good answer. Cycles. What's one thing in the final season that you really loved?
Well, keeping on the cute kids train, we had Joey and his brother Orlando.
Oh yeah,
likes the addition of those characters, and the way that they were involved in the Super Friends, and we kind of got to know them. We kind of lost track of them toward the end. But it was also nice to see him give his little hope speech. And I also just generally 6A emotional content, like the beginning and culminating in that Fear Not episode, I thought was really well executed. The one with the, they all face their different fears on the ship. And then Kara, finally joins them and gives Alex the big hug.
Oh yeah, they did sort of pay that off there in that episode. So good answers. Vivi, what's one or maybe several things? You can name several things if you want to. Things that you really enjoyed about the final season.
Well, I kind of two things. One was just a broader one that maybe wasn't totally expected, but I thought the closure on Nia's relationship with her sister was really well done, where it was like they landed in a place where there was room to reconcile, but there was still like a, you did something wrong and you're going to have to work that off. But the other piece I do want to highlight, kind of similar to Cycles, that the stuff in the front part of the season, actually, while Melissa was still on maternity leave and they were still dealing with the bulk of the COVID regulations that were creating a lot of hindrances to filming, I actually thought that one did the best job of working around all of those limitations and did the most solid character work, because they had to think so carefully about who was going to be in what parts of which episodes. Like 604, which was Lost Souls, where you have Kara and Alex actually acting in parallel despite being separated by whole universes. And the point being that all of the characters were trying to honor Kara's values, and that Alex is a hero, even though she was the only one on the team who did not have superpowers, and she still got to save the day. Like, that episode was really solid.
Yeah, Lost Souls. What a great episode. Good points. And Sentinel has some powers, I guess, in the blue hair streak somewhere. I think she gives her some sort of ability, even if it's not a super ability. John, was there anything that kind of stuck out to you in the final season as something that you thought was a strong point?
Yeah, I've always been a Brainy and Nia shipper, and fanatic, and so the way they were able to build their relationship, make it a little more grown up, even though it was weird, very weird at the end, how he was going to leave and then didn't, and all that. That was not handled maybe the best, but as a fan of theirs, I was glad that things were left in a good place with those two.
Do we think the Kaluans are just an extinct race now?
I think it's lights out for them.
No more big brain.
Is that how people understood that? I was just curious.
Brainy was hoping for the best.
Yeah.
We'll just like thoughts and prayers.
We'll just see how it turns out. I guess everything is totally fine. Okay, well, Shelley, what's something about season 6 that you really enjoyed or made you happy?
Nixley. I think Nixley was a great character. I think Peter Sargent did like an amazing job. She was a likable bad guy, and like I kept wanting her to redeem herself. I'm kind of sad that they just kind of got sent to the Phantom Zone, and that's a whole other thing that is a disappointment, so I'll stay away from that. But just her whole arc and her backstory was amazing. I think she did an amazing job, and I think overall she's probably one of my top 3 favorite villains on the show.
Yeah, she really stood out in the season as a really strong acting performance. Even maybe towards the end, maybe the material wasn't the best. She was still a great performer, and she really made that character stand out. And I believed that she was a villain, but I also felt bad for her, and I also thought she had impish qualities, which tied her into Mixie. So
yeah, she's a great villain.
Yeah, she was really. Go ahead.
She's good as a counterpoint with Kara as a character as well, who just really likes to believe in the best in people, and Nixley continually saying like nah which is amazingly hilarious. But then also you see moments like we saw with Nixley and Esme where like, oh, am I starting to hope as well? Because she has that compassion for Esme and like kind of gives weird advice that kind of works.
It was neat to see Nixley and Kara interact and have that dynamic opposed to each other, but also the kind of somewhat sweet moment between Nixley and Esme. She had some good moments with a lot of characters.
Sans throat slitting.
Well, I mean,
I don't like this story.
Nobody does.
I mean, there is that. I guess
she's like, I'm trying, kid.
What do you want from me? I'm a villain from the Phantom Zone.
Exactly. That's the kind of story.
She had a bunch of stuffed animals in that one scene that she was going to give to Esme, just like Kara.
True.
In other worlds, they would be friends.
Oh, that's so funny. I see a comment from Daryl in the chat that said, in any other season, Nixley might have gotten redeemed but they had a wedding to get to, so off she went. Which I think is pretty accurate.
I mean, Daryl's not wrong. I think that's a pretty accurate statement. Let's go to another question in the chat, because this will lead us into talking about the actual end of the show. So Leslie asks, how do you feel about Supergirl ending and where she ended up in the last episode? So I guess we're going to be talking about Supergirl finale. We could include the two parts. I guess it was technically a finale, but they aired it as 2 hours. So I guess we'll start with Justina. What did you think about the actual ending to the show, the Supergirl finale, and where Kara ended up in the end? How did you feel about that?
I really liked where she ended up. Unfortunately for me, I liked it so much that I just got disappointed that was the end, because I felt like this could be an exciting chapter to see what happens. So I was happy because I got a happy ending of sorts, but I was sad because I was like, I want to see more now.
Yeah, that could be a whole other series on its own, as Kara as the new head of Catco. I think that would be something to watch, especially, I don't know if they could get Callista Flockhart back, but that would be really cool to watch. Let's go to Cycles. What did you think about the finale of Supergirl towards the end of season 6 and Kara's endpoint?
So we had we had seen Kara's end coming for a while, where she's gonna, come out as Supergirl and Kara, and it's a ending that I was pretty happy with. The way they got there made it so that she seemed so much of a stranger to me throughout the middle toward the end of the season, that I didn't really connect to her in the same way, experiencing that happy ending of oh, I feel accepted. And it was kind of she was sort of pushed into it in a way where it didn't feel like it was coming from her, but more like the next thing she's supposed to do, because it's the right move. It's the moral thing to do. You're being a coward if you don't do it, as opposed to I just want to feel comfortable in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting that you point out that you felt like you couldn't really connect to Kara. I felt a little bit of that myself. Part of that is because she made some strange choices, throwing the Hope Totem in the sun, quitting her job. It was kind of strange there towards the end, but I think she, landed where maybe she was supposed to. So I guess they stuck the landing on that. But I'm with you. I had some of those same emotions there. Vivi, what did you think about the Supergirl finale and where Kara ended up at the end?
I mean, it had the same kind of struggle that the showrunning team has always had with pacing of the ending, where the story becomes overfull and then it kind of rushes to the conclusion. Like Cycle said, we clocked very early that they were setting up for Kara coming around to wanting to integrate all the parts of herself and find a way to be comfortable with that. And I loved the moment of her being happy in that decision, but the process by which she got there did not have enough of her own voice in it. And it also was very like in season 2, where the story kept kind of taking things away from her. And then she was like, well, this is what I have left, so I guess I'll go for it. And that really just didn't feel true to the character, I guess is the best way to put it. Kara is a very assertive person most of the time. So, and that just felt like it was missing, and other characters were kind of being the voices pushing her into a decision that really should have been all about her all of the back half of the season.
Yeah, I think Kat coming back sort of helped push her there, but you're right. A lot of that conversation was Kat being like, "Okay, this is what you're doing, so I hope you're okay with that." That's a really good point. John, what did you think about the technical end of the show, and what they did for Kara's story and how they wrapped her up?
Right. I appreciated that they did integrate both sides of Kara and Supergirl and pushed it forward. Where I think if my mind keeps going with it, it becomes impractical, because it's not a situation where, okay, Tony Stark is Iron Man and everybody knows that because it's just a suit, right? Tony's not an alien with super strength and powers and so on and so forth. So I really don't know how Kara is going to effectively function, right, from moving forward, because of either just people wanting to be near her because she's so powerful and so super, or distracting her from the job that she's supposed to be doing. It just didn't seem like this was again a practical answer for her. I appreciate the fact that she needed to recognize all sides of herself and to feel like all sides of herself were important, because they are. But the way this was handled left me with more questions than just pure satisfaction. Okay, we're in a good place.
Yeah, I felt it kind of felt like the writers were kind of interested in like, well, what would happen if this if we did this, and then they parachuted out before they had to answer any of the there's going to be huge repercussions for this for someone else.
Well, it goes back to what Justina was saying about how like, oh, we want to see what happens next. This is a great idea.
Yeah.
And they didn't really have the space in the story to justify why, like, how this will work. And that's a compelling idea.
And season 4 ended similarly too. It had that, like, it wrapped up and was like, and now we have solved the problem of alien hate crimes. Moving on.
And there were no more after that. Goodbye.
I really wanted to know what would happen if everyone in National City saw Supergirl's face on TV and said, oh, this is Supergirl. And they're like, yeah, we know. We've seen her on TV a million times. So that's what I wanted to see, the National City shrug of like, yeah, we know. We already figured it out. So there were lots of questions that they didn't have to answer there at the end. Shelley, just to reemphasize the question, because we've talked so long, I wanted to make sure we all remember the question. So Shelley, what did you think about the finale of season 6 and what they did with Kara at the end?
I came to peace with it, like, afterwards. I think like I was just like, you know what, it's probably good that it's over right now. I feel like we had, I don't know, 5.85 seasons worth of Kara hiding her identity, and it being like a huge thing that she hides her identity. And I know they were working up the season to like where she merges her identity and is like her authentic self to everyone. I liked that Kat was the one that helped her do that. I thought ending with Melissa's smile at the end was just amazing. Like, that was very well done. And I kind of like with John, like, what happens now? Like, where does she live? Like, is she still going to go to Noonan's? Like, how's she going to maneuver around like what she's used to is like Kara Danvers' life? Because she's like a celebrity now, I guess.
So does she still write stories? Can she write about Supergirl as Supergirl now? I mean, she was doing
Rebecca,
it anyway.
She's not going to go to work. Don't worry.
Well, she runs it now, right?
Yeah, she's still not going to go, though.
She can take extra long lunches. It's fine.
And like, what about all the stories she wrote where she quoted Supergirl? Like, is there any repercussions for that?
It feels like in a realistic world, right? This would cause everybody to be like, wait, she should never work in journalism again, because she was using herself as her own source.
And she wanted
that was also very
Supergirl.
like, that was pretty early on in her career that was actually actively happening. And then Snapper fired her and she came back and she wasn't really doing that. That we saw on the show.
So is this like Snapper's redemption arc?
It would have been great if, like, right at the end, Snapper just like pops out of the screen and is like, gotcha.
What if Snapper had taken Kat's place and was like,
no.
Danvers.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions there with Kara revealing herself as Supergirl. I know they'll never address it, but could that have implications for Superman and Lois? but I don't think they really recognize that Supergirl is a thing that exists in that world.
No, she doesn't exist in that
She
show.
still hasn't come out for them.
So that could have some major implications for Superman, but we'll never have to deal with it. So I guess there is that. Let's see. I'm trying to see if we have other questions we didn't cover. Let's go into. I'm curious about this because Morgan and I know about what our listeners reacted to, what their thoughts were on season 6 and the final season. But I'm curious about what your experience as podcasters were with the final season. Were your listeners happy? Were they sad? Were they, kind of on board with your thoughts? Like how did you think that your listeners were watching Supergirl and experiencing it in the final season? Justina and John, I guess this could go for both of y'all. What do you think your listener feedback was like?
People were pretty mad. There was a lot of that, and as the season went on, for me personally, I just felt so sad that a show that they loved this much was making them that angry. Because the green butterfly loves love and positivity, and I just want people to smile when they see their favorite show. So when the feedback would come in and I could just tell how hurt they were by some of the story choices or the writing or the turns that we were taking, I just felt bad because there was nothing I could do about it to make it better. But
a very Kara reaction.
It's their favorite thing, and it's letting them down.
Yeah. John, was that a similar experience for you?
Yeah, definitely. And it was disappointing because I don't know how many times I just kept saying, just hang in there. Just, just give it one more week. Just give it. And it did. And there was disappointment, but between Justina and myself as well over some of the choices that were made. And for me, season 6 was such a turnaround from season 5 because I just did not enjoy season's 5 journey at all. So I felt like season 6 was coming back out of that. And so I had kind of this buoyancy and hope that things would come around in that. But just the more the conversation went, the more it was just like, no, this is just not working. And I think the essential theme of what we kept hearing was, this is not Supergirl and hasn't been for a long time. And we were hoping that given the license to have one more season, to know you have the road in front of you, to have 20 episodes to do it, the execution just fell short.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing your experience, because we don't know what your podcasting experience is like. So thanks for sharing that. Cycles and Vivi from Supergirl's Attic. What was the dynamic between y'all and the listeners in season 6?
Well, it's interesting to hear all these Supergirl podcasts talk about the hope that you had for how the season.
Your favorite word to say.
Yeah. We will fight back and thrive.
Oh no!
Speeches at the beginning
she
of the
might
season.
know the whole speech. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we had a sort of similar experience that you had, John, where season 6, the beginning of it, felt like such an improvement over season 5, and I've been talking about it throughout this live podcast episode. The beginning of season 6 had a lot of good emotional content, and it really felt like it was amping up for something. So I think our listeners felt the same way, and were generally pretty excited about where the show was going. Also, we had kind of an idea how it would land, at the very end of it. And as we got toward the end, the excitement kind of fizzled out and got a little bit more in the dread zone.
Yeah, it was really interesting. We had one listener who was like me at the end of episode 17 going towards the finale, and it was like a little picture of like somebody doing finger guns. It was like low-key enthusiastic, like, you know, there were not going to be a lot of surprises, but like it would be good. And then after episode 18 ended with like the really contrived, like unnecessary death of William and the kind of shoehorning in of Andrea randomly becoming a Crata for no reason, and we had spent the whole middle thinking like, okay, they're dealing with the secondary main characters, and then the end is going to be, you know, the focus on the original trio to really close out, you know, the family part of it and bring it around to the Kara and kind of like the there's no place like home and stronger together. And then it didn't. And everyone kind of at the end of 18, I had never seen, and as someone who does fandom research, everyone with such disparate interests in the show be so unified in their emotions at the end. So in one sense, I guess the show did bring everyone together.
Stronger together, right?
Suffering together.
Yeah, that is something I think we experienced as well. So that's interesting to hear, especially that you do research on that. That's pretty cool. That's what I'm personally interested about the Supergirl fandom as a whole, because I know all of us as podcasters, we all have our own communities. So we're in Supergirl Radio. I feel like, I don't want to speak for you, Morgan, but I feel like we're in a little bubble sometimes, and that we don't know essentially what everybody else is thinking. So it's neat to hear y'all's perspective. Shelley, what were you getting from other Supergirl fans in terms of the final season and what was happening? What were you hearing or reading?
A lot of our listeners, the feedback we got, they just felt it was a rushed ending. Kind of like what John, I don't know if it was John or Cycles that said that they had like 20 episodes laid out, like they knew they had this long to like build it up, and then it just kind of, they didn't. But there was that. A lot of our listeners are Supercore fans, so there was a lot of disappointment on that front. There was also the identity issue, like her revealing her identity. That was a questionable thing, like the logistics of it, like we just spoke about, for a lot of our listeners. So there is just like a lot of dissatisfaction with the ending.
Can I add something really quick? Sorry, Rebecca.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't know how many of you have listened to any of like interviews that cast members have given after the fact or anything, but Ozzy Tesfaye was on a podcast, I think right around New Year's, where she actually mentioned that was the third rewrite of season 6. So it is very possible that some of it was quite rushed.
Oh my
wow.
gosh.
I did not know that. I was kind of struggling the whole time. I was like, you had the whole pandemic. You had all of this time. And this was it?
That's one
wow.
thing. Was it Jay who was talking about it? And
yeah, because he did a podcast interview as well as someone who's been a longstanding, like a comic and a TV writer.
Yeah, where there's this idea that the pandemic gave people more time because there was more like time in between when they start writing and when they finish, but there's a lot more production nonsense that is happening in the middle that actually makes it more difficult.
Yeah, and I have a friend, a colleague who is also a TV writer and has been writing throughout the whole pandemic, and she said it became logistically much harder because you could not have as many characters in a scene, and I think it affected the show as an action genre show because of having to be unmasked with the stunts where there's a lot of people breathing on each other. You saw a lot more CGI villains, especially in the middle, and then the fight at the end that wasn't a fight. But just also there, Ozzy specifically mentioned like the pandemic messed up all the plans they had to work around Melissa's maternity leave, and then that changed it, and then that changed how they broke the whole front of the season, and then that changed the whole rest of the season. And because she had originally had an episode that was about something completely different and had been approved, and then they had to scrap it and everything got started over from
so
like episode 10 onward. Yeah,
it was a PTSD from her related to her time in the army where related episodes. So
that would have been really interesting.
That would have been very interesting. It also
I would have
makes me
gotten on
wonder.
board with that. Yeah.
It makes me wonder if they were planning on doing Guardian earlier in the season too, because one of my complaints was like the position of where they had her as Guardian in the season meant that functionally she was like, "It's me, Guardian," and then you never saw her.
Yeah, and I think it was, and Melissa had mentioned this a few times as well. She wasn't supposed to stay in the Phantom Zone as long, but then because of the timing of where she was in her leave, and of course, for a show that's about supporting women, like by all means, she should be taking her maternity leave. Like people nitpicking that, I was like, okay, stop, that's enough. But it went a lot more episodes than they were expecting it to. So then they lost time in the back 2/3 of the season to develop more stuff. Yes. Whoever just said an episode about Kara and Kelly navigating their trauma, that would have been fabulous.
Yeah, Nicole says that in the chat. And yeah, that would have, and what a interesting way to, take those two characters and put them together and kind of show them on parallel paths. Like that would have been great.
Yeah. Well, they have a lot of similar energy in terms of like compassionate people, maybe going past boundaries sometimes to be compassionate.
Yes.
And it'd be cool to see the ways that they differ.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been great. Yeah, they're both helpers. Yeah, so that's very interesting. I'm gonna have to.
Then there's Alex, who's like
the opposite energy of both of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she's still compassionate, but more like her family specifically.
So Alex is like, "I'll help you no matter what. Do you want it? No, I'm still gonna help you."
I guess I'm a terrible person. I hear those excuses and I'm like, it doesn't matter. You should still have a quality episode. The season should still be good. I don't care if you have problems with COVID or you had to rewrite things. It doesn't mean that you can turn out bad episodes. I guess I'm still kind of like a stickler for that. I'm unforgiving. But
yeah, that's even worse. If they had 3 go at it, and this is what we got. I mean, that's even worse.
It's more like
think about
certain things that are set in stone.
Think about what would happen, if you're at your own day job and someone walks in and is like, "Hey, you need to redo this whole big project by tomorrow." It's a job like any other job, and to have it held to a different standard is unfair.
Yeah, that is tough to have to continue to pivot and pivot and pivot. I mean, things are going to get lost in translation. I don't know. Do they get so lost that Lena becomes a witch? That's a good question.
That also felt like a pandemic. Like we've been locked in our houses on Zoom for too long.
We've been watching a lot of Merlin. We'll just throw this in.
Binge watching Merlin, yeah.
They're like, we have no story for Lena. And someone's like, you know what I was doing this weekend? I got it.
I was in Canada.
I discovered Newfoundland was a place, and so let's.
Yeah, they made her a witch and Canadian. Like it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's too much for her to go through all at once. Were any of your listeners like excited about the witch thing? I feel like the universal reaction to that storyline has been, "Huh?"
Ours were, I think we were, but like in a fun way.
In a fun,
it was
like
chaotic
this is
in the
like
middle.
a crack fic comes to life.
There's like a random giant cat. Nixley's being chaotic. We love to see it. And there were a lot of strange elements happening, but where it was like, we have no idea where this part of it is going. We're in for the ride, I guess.
It felt like it felt like one of those like pandemic moods where you've just been on Zoom too long and you're like, you know what? We're going to ride this out. Like, let's just see where it goes.
It was somebody pitching out an idea that was just like, let's get everybody loose and laughing. But then people took it too serious. They're like, actually, we love this witch Lena idea. What if she was a witch all along?
That's like my conversations with Vivi.
Terrible.
Remember that when we had that idea to have a podcast? So strange.
Yeah. And I said sure for 1 week, and then
That's a good way to maybe segue into if y'all have any questions that you would like to pose to our roundtable for each other, for us. This would maybe be a good time to do it. If anybody has any questions or thoughts you wanted to put out there, does anybody have any?
Like podcaster questions?
Podcaster questions? Or like story questions? Kind of either of those.
I just wanted to highlight. So Leela said that the podcast that was mentioned that Ozzy was on was Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum.
Yes.
So I have not actually listened to that, but now I'm going to. I'm
Yes.
so curious.
David did an
Thanks,
episode with
Layla.
him as well. Thank you, Layla. David Harewood actually did an episode with him also,
nice.
I think when his book came out, which I have but have not started reading yet.
Ah.
Yeah, and I think there was also an episode with Laura Vandervoort that I found very intriguing because it sounded like she did not have a good time on Supergirl, and I was like, "Ooh, what's that story?" Michael Rosenbaum gets a lot of juicy details in his podcast. Everybody warms up to him and spills all the tea. But yeah, so if y'all have any questions, we have a few more questions. But if anybody has any questions they would like to
I have a
pose
question
to the
for you
roundtable,
guys.
okay, yeah.
So, which character do you most identify with, and why? Give me your psychological background.
Oh my gosh.
a
Oh
good
my gosh. This is a good question.
Morgan, would you like to start?
I don't think I can. I need to marinate on this. I need to think about this one.
Okay, does anybody have an answer? Anybody
Cycles,
wanna
this is unfair because you probably know my answer.
I don't know. You try to keep things interesting.
I do try to keep it a mystery, and then you call me out and you're like, just admit it.
Just admit.
You know the answer is Alex. Yeah. Kind of both of the Danvers sisters sometimes, but more Alex.
Mhm. Would you like to
why?
share with the class
Yes.
why?
But why? So when I started watching the show, it was the first year that my kiddo had moved overseas and gotten a job, and there were just so many things about Alex with Kara's dynamic of like being a young adult that were just inherently relatable, like the calling for needing help with mundane things. And then there was also just the Eliza and Alex dynamic was something that I really liked a lot, and it just vibed. It was nice.
Mhm.
Cool. Does anybody else? Justina, John, Shelley, Morgan? Anybody else have an answer that they want to share? Because I mean, I'll go. For most of the series, I would say Kara, just because I've always loved Supergirl's backstory and how she went through a lot of bad things in her life, things that were traumatizing or sad or something that she had to go through, she had to struggle through. And then she still ended up having an optimistic outlook on life, and she tried to help people. And there are things about her in that regard that I kind of see in myself, even though I don't have, heat vision and flight abilities.
That you know of.
That I know of. I haven't tried it. So maybe I'll after we finish.
It could be like Clark said to her, "Their powers you'll still grow into."
True. I'll try to see if I can warm up some tea
Get
with
some
my
more
eyes.
sun.
Yes. So those are things that I always kind of identified with Kara, and I struggled a little more in season 6. But then now that I think about it, because a lot of my memories of Kara in season 6 was just a lot of people yelling at her for seemingly no reason. She wasn't really doing anything too wrong, except for throwing the Hope Totem in the sun, which I'll never forgive the show for doing. But other than that, but it seemed like a lot of people were just like hassling her. And so I guess sometimes I feel like that too, where I feel like people are like either, just kind of society in a general term, or people in my sphere day to day. Sometimes I kind of feel like that. So I guess in some ways I still sort of identified with Kara, but it was on a different level. So I guess I have that in me, but I also kind of aspire to be like Kara on her best day when she's not throwing the Hope Totem into the sun. So I guess that would be my answer.
Just trying in your own way to be more like Supergirl.
Just try. We're never probably going to get there because Supergirl is too good. But yeah, so something like that. So does anybody else have a thought?
Yeah, so I would certainly identify with Martian Manhunter in that he is trying to keep the group together. He's trying to solve problems. He's not always seeking the best advice, or he's sometimes like going off of his own plan and not really getting and hearing and bringing in, and I feel like I could get into that kind of mind space a little too easily. So yeah, I definitely identify with a lot of what he was dealing with.
Nice.
Good answer.
Martian Manhunter is a quality character, so high five.
Such a good one.
Yeah.
He was a
Do you have
paragon
space
of
dad energy?
honor. Space dad energy.
That's right.
I feel like-
Justine. Oh,
I
so,
was gonna
go
say,
ahead.
I feel
Morgan.
like what I want my answer to be is Lena, because I also like to wear impractical outfits to situations that I shouldn't be wearing them to.
A little rebellious.
I think that's the more fun answer. You know, sometimes I'm like, am I a witch? And am not. I'm not
hasn't
from
had that
Canada.
thought at 13?
Yeah, exactly. But I think maybe I relate to Kara as well. Like I think I try to be optimistic like she does and see the best in people, even though sometimes, like Lena, I'm like, I don't think so. But yeah, I think her optimism and her ability to try to see the bright side of things and see the good in people. On my best days, I hope that I'm close, but not all of my days are my best days. Some days are my throwing the hope totem into the sun, right? So.
That's gonna be the new expression.
Yeah,
It's like, I
exactly.
could just throw a hope totem into the sun today.
Justina, Shelley, are there any characters on the show that you identify with?
I identify with Brainy, and I'm gonna start by saying it's not the intellect. I'm a programmer and work in IT, and I've always had difficulty with emotional cues. I often say things that I feel it's just the truth, but it's not, something you should say. My wife really helps out with that.
Like Nia of Brittany.
Yes.
That's true.
I mean, my Shay a lot of time is just like, no. And I'm just like, okay, and I'll stop. And like I operate things logistically, like, does it logistically make sense to include this in a conversation? No, so I'm not going to do that. And like when people ask me questions, I just answer your question. And it might just be a yes or no, and you might stand there and look at me and like want more, but I don't know why you want more because I answered your question. So it's just like just my way of thinking, and like the way I relate to people.
Well, sometimes I think that's yeah, you share the big brain. I think that's needed sometimes. That just a straight answer. I appreciate that. So thank you for that. Justina, is there a character on the show that you feel like you connect to?
I think Alex, because clearly Alex is way more adventurous than me, and I'm never gonna like jump off a building backwards or anything like that. but her coming out story really resonated with me as being very similar to mine. And also I'm a big sister, and her protectiveness to Kara, I always was really connected to that, because I felt like that's how I felt about my younger siblings. So I think Alex.
That's a good answer. All right. Let's see. I guess does anybody else have a question for the group? We have a couple of questions to end our discussion, but if anybody else has any questions, now is the time to ask them. If anybody does.
So, okay, discuss.
Debate.
There was such a hurdle with folks going back and messing around with Midvale back from season 3. Bringing Kenny Lee back into the present and what the implications for that meant, but yet, like we talked about, not bringing Kenny Lee into the present. So if you went back and screwed with what was one of the, I think, best episodes of the series, why didn't you pay it off in the present?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So we're dealing with time travel. So this will be a free for all. So if you have an answer or a thought, just jump in.
I just feel like they wanted to do something with Crisis. They were like, everything's different now because of Crisis. So Kenny Lee is alive, and that's why it's different because of Crisis. And they didn't think that people were going to be like, oh, they're bringing back this like sort of major character from like a fan beloved episode. That must mean something. And they were like, shoot, it didn't.
Well, I think those 2 episodes served a couple functions. One was to say things about the character of Kara without having Melissa around. So they got to, have the young actress play Kara, and then also explore her identity. We had scenes with young Kara and Nia, and kind of their alienness, and then seeing Alex be like, "Stop it, you two!
Stay in the closet." Yes.
And then they also got to just sort of. They got to explore the obviously Nia and Brainy stuff. What was the other thing I was thinking about? Somebody tell me.
Kara and Kenny's ultimate conversation came around to Kara realizing that she needed to make more choices for herself, which I think for me closed the door on Kenny. I had no expectation that he would come back in the present. That wasn't the function of the character. He was there really as an alternate path of, Kara was too afraid that he'd realized she was an alien to ever do anything in the original Midvale episode. And in this one, you see he does know, and it's okay. And she has a romantic relationship that is successful and doesn't end in tragedy. And and she still comes to the conclusion, like, I'm locking myself into things because I feel obligated to. I need to think of myself. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, when you think about season 2, it was sort of a season 2 into season 3 when Kara lost Mon-El and then had this decision about her whole life that was like, I don't get to have happy things because of who I am. She then gets to experience a relationship that works out with Kenny and doesn't have that as a representative in her head that like, I don't get to have romantic relationships, therefore I don't get to be happy generally. And then she also gets to make a decision that's like, this is for me, and it doesn't end horribly. And then it just didn't sort of follow forward into our, like, the Kara that we experienced after those episodes, having like had a realization about those moments. It was more of just us witnessing it happen.
Yeah, the time travel seems so unnecessary to me altogether, because they could have just time traveled back before Lex shot Supergirl into the Phantom Zone. So I had a real tough time getting on board with the time travel just because it didn't make sense. When they were going back, but I think those are all really good points in terms of Kenny's functionality there.
But it was also solving the problem of Melissa was not there. Like,
true. Yeah, they had to do something with Kara, and they went with the younger version, who I love. I love the younger Kara.
I would almost argue that the best Kara episodes were the young Kara episodes this season.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. In addition to that, there's a lot of our listeners were talking about how in Midvale, Kenny was such a big aspect of that original young Danvers sisters coming together, them as sisters. And if he's alive, do they have that kind of, how do they become close as sisters? Does that erase that kind of story for them? So there are a lot of aspects of the Kenny Lee thing. I also was like, why would you bring him back from the dead if you weren't going to do anything with him? He could have just stayed dead. So I had a lot of questions about Kenny Lee. So that's actually a great question to put forth to the panel. Does anybody else, before we wrap up that question, does anybody else have any Kenny Lee thoughts?
I'll just say that I like what Vivi said, and it actually makes me think differently about the storyline instead of just being like, oh, they wanted to, do some crisis nonsense, and they didn't think about bringing it back around. I like the idea of showing, that Kara could be happy and have a normal relationship and just have it end in a normal way. Like, she's going to a different college. No one gets sent off in a pod anywhere. No one dies.
Not traumatized because she thinks she let someone die. Yeah, like like they did at the end with William. It's fine.
Oh. Yeah. So I think that makes me sort of appreciate it more. I did like that they brought the character back, and I did like that how we got to see those interactions with Kara. So I think overall those episodes, to me at least, were successful. So now I'm looking at it a little bit differently. It wasn't like, oh, hey, are they ever going to do anything with that? It was like, oh, no, that's what they did. That was maybe their whole plan.
Yeah, it's a different way of looking at it. So thank you all for sharing your thoughts. Do y'all have time for 2 more questions and a round of snap judgments? Would y'all be into that? Is everybody cool on time?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Cool. All right. So there is a question in the chat, and then I'll also go back to my trusty Google Doc for the final question. So Leela has a question for all of us. If you could have pitched one episode topic for this season, what would it have been? So if you had the ability to write an episode of Supergirl in the final season, or at least craft a story for a character, what would you have wanted to see? And this is a free-for-all. You can just jump in. This may take some time to think about.
I feel like there were so many that we have pitched over the years.
None of them that I think would have been able to be fit in season 6.
No, I think it was the ship had probably sailed on Director Bones by that point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he could have come back at the end when they rebuilt the DEO. I guess you could have.
If they just right at the end when there's a new DEO and everybody's got their own like centers for excellence or whatever, they just show Alex shaking hands with a skeleton man. Then they never explain it. That would have been enough for me.
I think you also, one of our big pitches that we always came back to was Nasty Luthor. So if y'all don't know, Nasty Luthor is a character in the comic books. She's the niece of Lex Luthor in the comics, and she's a foe of Supergirl around the 70s, 80s time period in the comics. And we love the idea of Nasty Luthor. And I
repeatedly pitched that she should also just be Katie McGraw, but in a different wig. So we got halfway there in this season, but not in the way I want it.
we could have had 3 Katie McGraws if they had played their cards right.
Exactly.
She went on a journey to find her family heritage. She could have found out that she had a cousin named Nasty. I think you could have done that.
Instead of finding out she was a witch, she could have been like, "Oh my god, and you look so much like me." And Nasty Luthor could have been like, "I don't see it." In the bad wig.
Lena's like, "Oh, your name's Nasty. That's saying things about my lineage again."
She's like, "Oh no, now I'm down a spiral again."
They could have taken the Janet Jackson route and just had Lena drop a Miss Luthor if you're nasty.
Exactly. Just something for us.
Right, exactly.
A pun will do.
Anybody else have any stories that you wish they had done?
I'm not sure if I would have worked in terms of getting cast members on, but Alora and Eliza and
yes,
Zor-El at this point having like, I don't know, just a Thanksgiving dinner or something where they're interacting and maybe throwing a conflict in there to see the different ways that they perceive like their relationship with Kara and then Alex's involvement and all
and
that.
Jean being there too as like extra
John.
dad. Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, it's a parent battle.
Yeah, that actually would have been really interesting to see if like Kara's biological parents felt any weirdness about like meeting, Eliza and, Space Dad and things like that. Maybe they get in an argument about some sort of mission that she's on where Zor-El is like, I've got, I know how she should fight that garbage monster. And Space Dad is like, no.
The trash monster.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the other delights.
Yeah,
the trash.
Delightful surprises.
Poor Calyx, the trash monster.
So I wanted to see something like a second part of Midvale, like the original. As Kara was going through this kind of self-discovery of, I just need to devote myself to Supergirl. We went through this season 3 arc of her deciding that, I have to be Kryptonian. I can't be human. There's just no way that's going to happen. And I would have loved to see her and Alex go back to Midvale, spend some quality time with Eliza, and really explore what it means to have this human family, why it's important, why it built who she is today. And what those implications could have looked like. I know that sounds like a lot of exposition and a lot of talking, but
That's
I
what
think
I'm here for.
But
really, there's emotional conversations, or what?
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
character beats. What? Yeah, that would be excellent.
I just would have loved to seen the balance between, yes, I understand that I need to be full-time superhero, but there's also a ton of value in being this full-time human, and the family aspects that come along with that. And I just feel like we got shorted that.
I have a silly one. Someone in the chat just mentioned Akrata, and I would have loved an ongoing storyline of Andrea trying to set herself up to hang out with Supergirl constantly and trying to use Kara to do it, and then being like, Kara, what are you doing here? And just awkwardly having to see Kara explain her way out of it, and then Andrea becomes Akrata, like to try to get closer to Supergirl, and it's just becoming like a whole big thing.
She's like a fan.
Yeah. But not in the creepy way like the cult yet.
Andrea joins the Cult of Ral is your pitch? No.
That's definitely if she revives the Cult of Ral. Yeah, no.
But she like turns it into like more of a like a fan club though. It's more
she's doing it for the likes.
Yes,
For the likes. Yeah.
She runs the fan
And
page for
then
Supergirl.
she discovers the way that she is a hero. She goes on her hero's journey as Akrata and is like, no, I'm different in these ways.
Yeah, that might have been actually interesting to see more from Akrata instead of seeing her talk about the Catco rankings, versus the Daily Planet.
I mean, I did enjoy that they made Andrea more engaging. In season 6, I was just a little bit bummed that, they brought in the character of Akrata, and that felt like something that some of the Latin writers in the room had pitched at the end of season 4 into season 5, and then none of them had returned, and so it got shafted.
Yeah, it felt like for Andrea, there was no reason she actually had to be Akrata for the story purposes. Like, she could have just broken into those offices and grabbed that stuff.
I guess that also makes me think of Magan. She disappeared at some point. She went out on patrol, and we don't know where Magan went.
We know she's in
she
the
got
wall
a shout
mural.
out.
She's stuck in the painting in Esme's room. So we're just gonna assume that
she's somewhere with Wynn's girlfriend in season 2.
Wait.
Forgot about her.
What's her name? Lydia. Lydia?
Oh, right. Yes.
It started with an L.
Yeah.
Lyra.
Yes.
Lyra.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Lyra.
That makes more sense.
Yeah. So I would probably pitch like a whole Magan storyline in the background. Like, what was she doing? What was she doing? Was she encountering white Martians on the street? What was she doing?
I would have loved
she
one
and John
episode.
go back to Mars or something.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. That'd be great.
I would have loved us to get off Earth for like an episode. Like Argo, we have Mars as an option. We have Naltor as an option. We never got to learn anything about that. Yeah, like there was
a
so
Nia homeland journey. Like
well, and especially this season was all about her, trying to connect back to her, her powers and things like that. That would have been cool and a change of pace to like get off Earth for a second.
Yeah.
That would have shaken things
Maybe
up.
the dream totem could have been on that planet.
Yes.
Well, now I'm disappointed. That would have been great.
Well, that's whenever you have a really good idea, you're like, that could have happened.
If I could have just pitched this to them. Well, those are some great thoughts. Thanks to everybody for sharing them. And I guess our last question here is we're just curious, like, what is everybody doing now that the show is over? Are you going to continue your podcast? Are you going to take a break? What are your plans for, your Supergirl podcasting experience and just your, I guess, fandom in general? What are y'all up to? Because Supergirl Radio is going to keep going because we just have too much fun doing the podcast, but we're curious about what y'all are going to do. So Justina and John, what are y'all's plans?
We really want to keep our community together. So we haven't done our What Does Supergirl Mean to You episode yet, so that is what's coming up next in the immediate future. We have had some listeners request like a roundtable with them so they can talk to us and each other all at the same time. So hopefully we can put something like that together. And I'm definitely wanting to discuss with John some ideas I have in my mind, off in the DC multiverse of just being able maybe to hop around to different things in DC and sample different things and then keep in contact with our fans through social media and hopefully get their feedback on things, new things as they come out.
That's an awesome idea to connect with your listeners and to sort of keep it going with some other things that you may not have seen or experienced before. That's awesome. Supergirl's Attic, what are y'all's plans for the future?
We're doing stuff. We got plans.
Big plans.
Big plans. We're going to at least our 100th episode. We have a bunch of topics that we want to analyze.
Yes.
We have the rest of our Truth, Justice, and the American Way 3-part series. Justice is next.
Yeah.
An
Should be fun.
intersectionality meta episode coming up. Lots of fun things. We're also going to maybe do some video-based things.
Yes. And then we had a couple other just fun projects that now that we don't have to turn around the podcast quite as quickly, we've been able to do more of our own just like creative fan content, which has been great. So
yeah,
that's awesome. And I saw y'all went live on your YouTube channel. Are y'all gonna do more live streams?
Ooh.
Maybe. Who's to say?
I don't know.
Stay tuned.
we have been thinking about doing a couple more things as videos because we have a recording that I think will work better with video attached to it that we're working on pulling together. And then we've had some requests for more like the video essays, like the one we did for Alex in Wonderland. So we might do more of that kind of stuff.
You guys
That's
should check
awesome.
it out. It's a good video. I watch it all the time.
I am our channel's biggest fan. I'm not going to lie. Specifically for the little video that we did with the first gauntlet, the bravery one, we pulled like the SNL fake audio of the song Brave. And it's and it's literally it's just like the characters angrily flailing and like hitting people until Kara's like, oh my god, and then it cuts off. It's great. It's 30 seconds. It's joy.
That's awesome. Well, we'll have to look forward to more of that. So thanks for that. And Shelly, what are you and Aaron going to do? Are y'all going to keep podcasting? Or are you going to stay in the fandom, as it were?
We need to start podcasting. We've been on hiatus for a while. I started going back to school full time during the pandemic. And it was when I was working from home. But now that I'm actually going back to work, working full time and commuting and going to school full time, I just don't have a lot of free time. I feel like I just said time a lot.
Time goes by.
You as Kara stuck in the Phantom Zone ruminating on the passage of time.
Yes. But we do have plans to continue to podcast, to start, doing that again. Hopefully this spring. I think my workload will lessen a little bit in school and we'll have time to do that. So we'll actually just recap season 6. We haven't been able to do that yet.
Well, that's awesome. So you have more podcasting in your future. So that's good to hear. I'm actually glad to hear that y'all are going to keep podcasting in the space and trying new things and, not just finishing the show and then peacing out. That's exciting that y'all are going to keep doing that. Cause I think all of you bring a little something different to the Supergirl fandom and to the podcasting genre, the podcasting medium. So I'm glad to hear that, the genre. So I'm glad to hear that y'all are going to keep going. Morgan, do you want to tease maybe, what we're doing? If you remember everything we're doing.
I don't. But so yeah, we're gonna dive back into the comics a little bit. We're gonna get into was it Woman of Tomorrow?
Woman of Tomorrow. Yeah,
Yes.
it's been a while. We need to.
It's been a
we need to-
while.
so
It's
good.
been a while. We will one day finish Rebirth. That is our promise to you.
Not in the near future.
Not
we can't
soon.
make any real promises.
Not soon though. We have a couple of fun interviews lined up, which I'm excited about. One of which is with the prop master. So finally, I can ask about the Rama cards, the playing cards. I can ask him about all the totems, the little soap totem, that
I think
little rose soap
also-
totem.
I think he's also responsible for that picture of Lena Luthor asleep.
Yes,
And
that's
supposedly,
true. I want to hear the
asleep.
story if they like made Katie McGraw be like, okay, now sleep, but beautifully.
Yeah, and we're also going to be starting a series that we call Supergirl Radio Rewind because Morgan expressed interest in revisiting season 1 because she didn't join Supergirl Radio until the near end of season 1.
I wasn't on the podcast until pretty much season 2, and I was like, well, I have thoughts and feelings about season 1. So we're going to be taking it back.
So really, it's just going to be me interviewing Morgan about her thoughts because everybody's already heard my thoughts.
Maybe your thoughts are different now.
Maybe.
with time and having seen how it turned out.
Maybe it'll be interesting to revisit those early episodes. So we'll be doing a lot of that. So glad to hear everybody's gonna keep going and gonna keep enjoying Supergirl and podcasting in general. So that's awesome. Well, do y'all have time for some snap judgments? We'll make some quick snap judgments and force you to make a choice. So we'll be right back. In the game of snap judgments, each person is presented with 2 options, but must only choose one. First instincts are recommended and explanations are unnecessary.
Okay, so our first snap judgment is from Michaela, who says, which would you rather have as a Supergirl spinoff TV show? The Legion of Superheroes in the 31st century, or an Alex and Kelly spinoff in which we get to see them raise Esme?
So, Justina, what would you rather have? Legion of Superheroes spinoff or Alex and Kelly spinoff with Esme?
Alex and Kelly.
Okay. All right. Cycles, which would you rather see?
The Legion of Superheroes.
Vivi, what's your pick?
I'm
You
not
gotta
immediately
pick one.
enthused about either, but the Legion.
Okay. John, what's your pick?
Legion, please.
Shelly, what would you rather see?
Legion.
Yeah.
I have a
You've
question.
been outvoted, Justina.
I have a question.
Oh, wow.
Is the Alex and Kelly show a sitcom? Because that could change my. Is it like
Good
Esme,
question.
exclamation point?
It's not specified in the snap judgment, so it's just a spinoff of whatever you want it to be.
Maybe it's a horror. Who's to say?
Oh,
Given
and-
Esme's
ooh,
experience
and it's like Esme.
so far.
It's like that little gif of like the little girl like that turns around and like looks evil.
looks at the house
What's to
on
do
fire.
when your kids' powers get out of control?
Yeah, I'm also gonna go with the Legion, although the horror idea is really pretty interesting for me.
Yeah, I would like to see a Legion of Superheroes TV show. It sounds like we're going to get an animated version.
It's true.
But it would be awesome to see a live action one. So I think that's what I'd probably like to see.
Animated's probably the smarter choice at this point, given the restrictions still on both. I think the visas for going back and forth to Vancouver was an issue for a while, and then also the stunts have just been limited.
Yeah, also doing Bouncing Boy in live action might be tough.
I'd like to see it.
Animation's
better
probably
than CGI because there's also been a shortage of designers to do the editing.
That's true. Yeah,
I've heard that. That's crazy. Okay, so our next 2 snap judgments are from Gina. The first one is, which would you rather have happened at the end of the series? Kara wakes up suddenly and we realize she's been in a coma that Rain put her in during season 3 this whole time. Or Kara wakes up and we realize the whole series has been a dream and it's only been a few hours since she saved Alex in the plane. So So both versions, the later seasons are not real. Tell us how you really feel.
This is a narrative-driven snap judgment. So, Justina, which one would you rather have seen? Carr being in a coma, or the whole series has just been a dream?
I think I got to go with Rain Coma.
Good choice. Cycles, which one would you pick?
Rain coma.
Rain coma. Vivi.
I feel like back to the pilot episode would have been a fun circle, actually, to like what her initial gauntlet was that she didn't want to face. So that would have been kind of like a fun twist.
She gets a redo.
Yeah.
That's what that
it's like the
Destiny
Wizard of
Gauntlet
Oz.
did.
She wakes up going, it would have been perfect.
So you're going just a dream?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. John, what'd you pick?
Yeah, I'll also go Just a Dream.
All right. Shelley, what's your choice on this one?
Just a dream.
Nice.
Ooh. I think I'm gonna go Rain Coma, because at least we get the first like most of the first 3 seasons is real, and then we can just take a mulligan on like 4 through 6.
Yeah, I'm used to characters being in a coma from my many years of watching soap operas, so I'm okay with characters in comas. So I think we're gonna go with Rain Coma.
We're getting a lot of coma adjacent recommendations in the comments.
Oh.
Carr wakes up having been inside the Phantom Zone.
Ooh.
And we also have It's Been Since the Black Mercy.
Oh, that's taken us all the way back too. Okay, our next snap judgment from Gina is: what other villain from the past should Lex have conjured? Giant kitty cat from season 6, Manchester Black and the Hat, or Ramakan?
Justina, which one would you like to have seen from the past come back into the present?
Ramakan, because you guys have so much fun with him that I would have loved to have more Ramakan on our screen so that you could talk about it on your show.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for thinking of us.
Just living life. He's just enjoying life at that winery is the thing. He's retired now.
Cycles, which one would you want to see again?
Manchester Black in the Hat, because it's such a severe mismatch with who Lex is as a person. He would not cooperate. Neither of them would care about whatever Lex is up to. So, and I also liked Manchester Black a lot as a character.
Yes.
Yeah, you get a twofer there. Manchester Black and the Hat. That's good. Vivi, which one would you pick?
I would go with the giant cat, because it would prove that he is paying attention to Nixley and understands who she is as a person.
Oh, that's deep.
Yeah,
that is
he has
deep.
cat energy.
He's showing that he loves her for real? ?
He's like, see, I'm interested in things you're interested too.
John, which one would you want to see again?
Oh, definitely Manchester Black in the Hat.
Nice. Shelley, which one would you bring back if you could?
Manchester Black in the Hat, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Popular.
I think Manchester Black and the Hat are a better dynamic duo. But God, I just want to know what Ramakan is up to.
You miss him.
I just miss him. He doesn't call, he doesn't write. So
yeah, Ramakan has some mythology that has not been explored. He's lived for such a long time. What's he been doing all this time?
He's still never going to tell you who's in charge of Leviathan. I'm sorry.
We're never going to.
What if Lex brought him back and just to scream who's in charge of Leviathan at him?
Yeah, I think that's who I'm going to
pick. It was the cat all
pick.
along.
It was the cat.
What a twist.
There it is. That's where they could have brought in Director Bones. Director Bones could have been in charge of Leviathan. That is his in.
This is like
to
my
the show.
dream episode.
It would have been great.
We just created my dream episode. Thanks, guys.
Real heartbreaker.
Yeah.
Okay, so our last snap judgment is from Ryan, who says, would you end the show with season 1 on a high note, but ending so soon? Or season 6, one of the worst seasons of the show, but you have over 100 episodes of Supergirl?
So we're really getting what Ryan thought about season 6 here.
Again, tell us what you really think.
Getting some mixed signals.
Yeah, Justina, would you rather end the show with season 1 or season 6?
Season 6.
All right, Cycles. Where would you end the show?
Season 6.
Okay.
There's some, chef's kiss moments in the middle there. So
Yeah. Vivi, what's your choice?
Season 6.
chef's kiss.
Also that. Yeah.
John, where would you end the show?
Yeah, this has been such an amazing journey, especially behind the mic. There's no way I wouldn't have gone the whole way.
Yeah. Shelley, where would you end the show?
Season 6.
Yeah, that's such a tough one because season 1 is so solid, but season 6, at least you get some of the stuff in season 3. Would that allow?
I have to pick season 6 because some characters don't even show up in season 1. I would have never. There would have been no boardroom or ballroom if we had ended at season 1. No Lena Luthor.
Yeah. So there's a lot of good things in the middle there. We do have. I did see a snap judgment in the chat, so I guess this will technically be our last one from Tiana. What spinoff would you rather see? So I guess these are our options: Young Kara and Alex Adventures in High School, or the Esme sitcom. So this is kind of a variation on a previous snap judgment, but now we have the option between Esme sitcom, specifically a sitcom here, or a Kara and Alex sort of mid-Vale high school adventure. So Justina, which one would you pick?
I still want Esme.
Okay, still going Esme.
Solid exclamation point for her.
Solid choice. Does Esme exclamation point have like a cheesy like 80s theme song at the beginning? I feel like it does.
I think it does.
Yeah. I would watch that show. Cycles, which one would you want to see?
Well, if it's not a horror,
no, it's got to be a sitcom.
I'm gonna have to go with Young Kara and Alex Adventures in High School.
Okay, solid choice. Vivi, which one would you pick?
Probably Kara and Alex.
All right, John, where are you on this snap judgment?
Yeah, Kara and Alex.
All right, Shelley.
Kara and Alex.
Yeah. All right. So Morgan, are you watching Esme exclamation point? Or is this binge worthy?
I think it's going to have a great opening theme song. And for some reason they're going to have a butler. I feel very strongly about that. How? Why? Don't ask questions.
It's a favor from Lena, I guess.
It's a gift from Esme's godmother. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I think I would go Young Kara and Alex too.
Yeah, there's a lot left to be explored in Midvale in the high school years, so I'd probably go with that too. But the butler on the Esme sitcom, that is very tempting. So
Manchester Black, of course.
Oh, yeah, bringing it around.
I like that. I like that. All right, well, that's going to do it for us with this round of snap judgments. No judgments on your snap judgments. All right. Well, thank you to all of our Supergirl podcasters for joining our roundtable just to kind of recap how our experience was in the final season and to see where we all landed. So I guess let's go around our roundtable and tell the listeners where everybody can find you and how they can keep listening to you. So Justina, John, how can our listeners find you on the internet?
Well, you can find us over at Golden Spiral Media at Maid of Steel, and on Twitter we are at Supergirl GSM, and my personal Twitter is Justy1978.
And I just realized I had the wrong Instagram for y'all. I copied the wrong thing over, so that is my bad. That is on me.
Supergirl's Attic.
So
But
really,
you can also follow Supergirl's Attic.
Really,
Yeah, that works.
really, just
Stealing
follow
your-
them
stealing your-
everywhere. But definitely follow Maid of Steel on Twitter and check them out and put them on your subscribe in your podcast app. All right, so Supergirl's Attic. Now that we know how to follow you on Instagram,
Yes.
so how can everybody check in with you and keep up with y'all?
You can subscribe to us in whatever your preferred podcast app is. Our site is supergirlsaddict.com, and you can follow us on Twitter, Tumblr, or Instagram at Supergirls Attic.
Oh, Tumblr. I didn't get the Tumblr on there. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So we'll,
It's the same thing as supergirlsaddict.com. So.
Okay. All right. That will be included in our show notes. I'll try to get all the links of everybody in there.
You guys have a YouTube? Or
yes, we do. Also have that's also Supergirl's Attic.
Nice.
Nice synergy there.
Way to be consistent. Sometimes it's hard to get all those handles to be the same thing.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a niche sounding name, Supergirl's Attic, you know.
You never know. There might be somebody who is, a Supergirl collector who keeps their Supergirl collectables in their attic.
That could be a fabulous Toyman episode. That
actually would, now that I think about it. Good point.
Back to that horror genre.
Shelly, where can people find Pod Off Course?
We're on Twitter at Pod Off Course, and you can email us at podoffcourse@gmail.com.
And can listeners find you personally somewhere? Or
Yes, I'm on Twitter. I'm at Shop23, SCHOP23 on Twitter.
Awesome. Good. All right. So I think that's going to do it for us. Y'all are welcome to duck out of the live stream while we wrap up Supergirl Radio business, because you may not want to stay for that part of it. But thank you guys. Thank you all for joining us here and sharing your thoughts and your experiences, because it's always interesting to see what everybody else is feeling about the show and about podcasting. So really appreciate it. Maybe somewhere down the line we'll kind of check in and see where everybody is. but until then, thank you all for spending your time with us, because I know it was quite a bit of time. So thank you for staying as long as you did. But you can duck out while we do our plugs when I can find them. Let's see. So we're going to get to some Supergirl Radio and DCTV podcast plugs, but y'all are welcome to leave in the meantime, and we'll wrap up our Supergirl Radio stuff. If you would like to contact Supergirl Radio, you can post a comment on our website at supergirlradio.com. You can email us at supergirlradio@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can call us at 678-718-7252. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram, all at Supergirl Radio. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Podchaser, and Spotify, where we also have a Spotify playlist that includes music featured on and inspired by the CW's Supergirl TV series. We are listed on DC's fan page, which you can find at dccomics.com/DC-fans. If you like what we do, we encourage you to give us a rating and write us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy our Supergirl Radio live streams, make sure to subscribe to the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel and hit that notification bell to get notified when we go live and wired. DC TV Podcast also has a TeePublic store, so if you're in need of new DC TV related t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, onesies, mugs, notebooks, pillows, or stickers, go to supergirlradio.com and click on the TeePublic store link at the top of the page.
Supergirl Radio, Superman and Lois Radio, The Flash Podcast, and Legends of Tomorrow Podcast, Black Lightning Podcast, Batwoman Podcast 2, and Titans and Doom Patrol Podcast just for you, Justice League Dark Podcast, Green Lantern Podcast, Stargirl Podcast, Strange Adventures Podcast, and finally my favorite of the bunch, DC TV After Dark, where you're allowed to say fuck.
We really need to update that list, because I know it's severely out of date.
I just don't understand. Like, they just keep making new shows, and it's like, how? Why?
They just like to keep us on our toes.
They're like, what if we added 5 shows this month? Like, what if you didn't? Yeah, we don't have Naomi in there or anything.
Yeah, so we'll need a new song. Perhaps for the next time around. But I guess we should talk about the TeePublic store.
I would love to talk about the TeePublic store. And you know what? Speaking of the TeePublic store, DC TV Podcast has a TeePublic store, and we have some live and wired merch.
Yeah, speaking of podcasting, and some of our podcasting that we do is now live and wired, and has been for a while. We've been live streaming for quite some time now.
Geez, we really have.
Like we've been doing it for a short amount of time, but in the actual reality of it, we've been doing it for a while. So you can check out some of this merch designed by Sarah Louver, aka Comiker Girl, who did some custom Livewire art, some Leslie Willis art for us. So you can check out those designs at the DCTV Podcast T Public store. And we would like to thank our legion of super sponsors for supporting us with the Supergirl Radio Patreon. These people are Michael, Sam, Anne-Marie, Yvonne, Quinn, Nicola, Leslie, Abby, Ermcard, Miriam, Cherie, Donna, Nicole, Lizeth, and Faith. If you would like to support us, you can go to patreon.com/Supergirl Radio. We have 4 tiers of monthly memberships, and we appreciate you helping us keep the lights on and helping us out with all kinds of hosting fees and the things of that nature. Also, we'll talk about this more when Superman Celebration comes around. But because of the support from the Patreon, we were able to purchase a brick for
We're there.
Yeah,
whether we show up or not, guess what? We're there.
we're in Metropolis, Illinois, at the Super Museum. So if you ever get a chance to head out to Metropolis, Illinois, look for Supergirl Radio among those bricks on the ground. We thought that would be a good way to honor our Supergirl Radio podcast and our community of listeners and the Patreon supporters who support us. So thank you all for doing that. It's a good thing that we have up there. It was a good way to honor our community and continue the Supergirl motto of help, hope, and compassion for all. All right, and we'll have more on that in the summer because I might be heading back to Metropolis and checking that out. So hopefully it will be there on the ground while I'm there. I don't know exactly where they're going to place it, so I'll have to go hunt it.
You can report live from the scene.
Yes. I'm taking my Kermit the Frog reporter microphone.
Yes.
Maybe also a trench coat with a reporter hat.
I'll the little thing in it too.
Yeah, it says press on it. Yes. I'm going to have to get one of those. Okay. Well, if you want to check me out personally, you can follow me on the social media platform Vero at Derby Kid. You'll know that I've been watching The Witcher. Finished The Witcher seasons 1 and 2. New favorite show. So I'm very excited about that. Also started watching Breaking Bad. I'm in the 3rd episode. I don't like it.
No, I didn't like the first season either. I feel like it's a controversial thing to say because everybody was talking about how much they love Breaking Bad. And I was like, this show right here. So I'll never tell a person like hang in through like 15 episodes and then it gets good, right? Because like if you don't want to, that makes sense. That's a lot of hanging on. But if you do indeed make it to like season 2, it does start to get better. And like eventually I was very into it by the end. I was like in all the Breaking Bad stuff, like really liking the show. But season 1 is pretty tough.
Yeah, so if you follow me on Vero, you'll know what I've been watching and consuming, because that's where I share kind of all those things. Sometimes I share occasionally when I start a book, you'll know about it, but usually there's no button on Vero that says, "Hey, I've finished this," or "I'm getting close," because I don't select those buttons because that never happens. But I do share when I start a book. It's a very exciting time when I start a book, but haven't managed to finish those. One day when I get a chance. You can also follow me on Instagram at The Derby Kid. I've become obsessed with Instagram Reels. So you'll see my experimentation over there. You can also follow me personally on YouTube. I have a channel, youtube.com/DuckMilkProd. I've been doing some Batman v Superman top critic review analyses, if you want to call it that, reading through the Batman v Superman reviews from the top critics of Rotten Tomatoes. It's an experience. It's getting harder to do. As far as I'm in now,
you've been doing it for a while.
It's becoming a lot harder. A lot of these reviews come across like a mean girl writing in her burn book, and there's not a lot of value added that way. A lot of critiquing Henry Cavill's physique, and I'm like, why are you condemning him for his physique? Why wouldn't that be like a positive thing?
His physique What is there to complain about?
I don't know.
I've seen Witcher. I have no complaints.
Like, why are you acting like this is a negative for him? It's very strange that happens a lot. It's quite perplexing. But yeah, you can check me out there on Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern with a live stream that you can join and share your thoughts.
Cool. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Mojotastic. And you can also find me as a co-host of the Legends of Tomorrow podcast, where we have been very much enjoying this season 7 of Legends of Tomorrow. It's been pretty strong. Last week, Kat and we pitched some ideas for Shark Tank. Yeah, sure. Because it was about reality television. So eventually that somehow led us to Shark Tank. I think our ideas were essentially like helping children cheat on science fair projects. So I don't think that company's going to take off so much if I had to guess. That's also probably shouldn't. It's dishonest. But
yeah, that's not great.
But we tried. And also... We'll also co-host on DC TV After Dark, which we are tentatively, we have a recording date. I want to update everyone. This is a big update.
This is a big update.
We have a recording day. It's in my calendar. It's for February. So
it's coming up.
It's coming up. So I'm one of these days. And so we're hoping to release that towards the end of February, beginning of March. So I always advise people, hey, you want to know more about DC TV After Dark? You're going to want to subscribe to the podcast feed because there's really no rhyme or reason when the episodes come out. We like them to be like a fun little surprise. Like, I haven't seen you in a year. How you doing, handsome? That kind of thing.
Well, that is good to know. Keep your radar on DC TV After Dark. Very exciting stuff. All right. Well, that is going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio. But until next time, I'm still Rebecca Johnson.
And I'm still Morgan Glennon. And thanks for joining us for this Supergirl Podcasters Roundtable.
McGurk! I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom, because
she looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. It's so fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.